All right, all right, all right. Well, we will get started right about now. All right, welcome to the National Jazz Museum and welcome to Music on the Brain, which is a collaboration between the National Jazz Museum in Harlem and the Zuckerman Institute at Columbia University. My name is Christian. I work here at the museum, right in here in the office, and we are a nonprofit organization working to preserve, promote, and present, like tonight, the wonderful music that's called jazz. So if you feel so inclined, we do accept cash donations at the front desk. No pressure at all, but we are a nonprofit. So, and to get us started for tonight's event, I would like to introduce the wonderful pianist, vocalist, and composer, Kelly Green.
Thank you so much. And before we move on, I want to give a big thanks to Kent for putting this whole thing together. And these events happen, every other month? Or there's several kind of per semester, so just keep an eye on the schedule because they're always different. They're always with different musicians and different scientists speaking on different topics and the intersection between the mind and music. So this evening, without further ado, I'll bring up Dr. Noam Schneck. He is an assistant professor at Columbia University, and I'm going to let him take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself, Noam.
Hi, is this on? It's good? Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. And Ken, thank you so much. This is, without a question, the coolest thing I've ever done. I've done a lot of nerdy things in my life, but this is definitely the coolest thing that I've done. And I'm really honored to be here. I think, science often lives in a bit of a bubble or a gigantic glass and steel tower over in Zuckerman. And it's really amazing to try and take science into the real world, and not just the real world of people, but the real world of experience and music, and something that speaks and resonates by definition. Music resonates with people's souls. And to try and cross that bridge and make science meaningful and grant it that access to our souls, to our sense of existence and self, is really an honor. So thank you so much for having me. I come from the world of clinical psychology. I'm a psychologist. I have a practice, and I see mostly people who are bereaved of a loss by suicide. And that's also what I study in my research. I study people who've lost a loved one to suicide. And what brought me to that is the most amazing statistic about suicide loss, which is most people who've undergone what is probably objectively one of the most terrible things a person can experience, most people will be okay. And I think that's incredible. And that's what inspired me to start to study this and to understand how can that be that somebody could go through this, could lose a loved one to suicide and could be okay. And yet it seems, and not to say that there's something wrong with the people who struggle more. A lot of people struggle. But the fact that the trend is towards coming back to a life of meaning and thriving is so inspiring and so beautiful. And I really think it speaks to the power of the human spirit. And that's what motivates my work, and really, I think, forms a bridge between both of what we do.
Thank you for sharing. So we're going to play a song for you now, and this is, I'm going to bring up the band. And I just wanted to introduce Noam to you to kind of give you a background of what we're going to be dealing with today, musically and otherwise. So thank you so much for introducing. I'll take your mic. If you want to, you can hold it. Maybe you can just stay, or I don't know.
Should I sit down?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe sit here. Because I'm going to bring up the band. I'm extremely grateful to have my long-standing quartet with me here. This is Luca Soul Rosenfeld on the upright bass, Elijah J. Thomas on the flute, and this is Evan Hyde on the drums. And they're going to help me tell my story tonight.
it's every day. I feel like calling to talk about nothing at all. And though I know you're here beside me, I miss the way you'd always call. And now I'm here wishing I had one more day to share stories and listen. And now I know the feeling you told me about missing and holding you near. I know it's wrong to say I loved you, 'cause you're still here each night and every day. Oh, but no matter how hard I pray, alone I lay, all my memories replay. And now I'm here, wishing I could see you smile, while I sit here playing this song. And though I know that you're listening to this tune I wrote, and the whole tune is written, oh, just for you, I just can't help missing the way you'd call, just to talk about nothing, nothing at all. To hear your voice, to say goodnight, to know that all will be alright. To tell you true, I love you too. I'll see you soon. It's every day I feel like calling just to talk about nothing, nothing at all. And though I know you're here beside me, I miss the way you'd always call.
So that song came to me when I was doing the dishes, and it was incredible when Noam and I first met on Zoom with Kent talking about this meeting, because it explained so much to me about my process, and I didn't even know that a grief specialist existed. I've just been living. My mother passed in 21. And I've just been living and processing in my own way. And I made this album for her and dedicated to her, and that song is on it. It's called Nothing at All. And so, Noam, I'd love for you to start sharing a little bit about how you came to study the unconscious mind.
Yeah, thanks for the song. It was really beautiful. I heard it on Spotify, but live is really, you just can't compare. I was really interested in the unconscious mind just from my own experience, right? Like, I think it's amazing that with the same set of facts around you, you can feel so differently about something from one moment to the next, right? You go to sleep and you're so upset, so angry or worked up about something. You wake up and it's fine and nothing's changed. And yet some part of your brain has said, that's okay now. And what we know from artists and a lot of different creative disciplines is that people, and just life, right? People have these like flashbulb moments, these light bulb moments, right? Where something just comes together all of a sudden, something you've been working on, something that hasn't made sense, whether it's an artistic project, whether it's just something you're struggling with in life. All of a sudden, one day, it just makes sense. And I thought, like, how amazing would that be if we could harness that power, that mysterious, unearthly kind of ethereal power of the unconscious mind, and use it towards healing, use it towards helping people address what seems to be, in some sense, the greatest problem of all, which is loss, right? Like, how do you solve loss, right? It's impossible. You've lost someone. How do you go on? How do you, someone who's close to you, particularly I deal with traumatic suicide loss, how does a person move on from that? And it's almost impossible to imagine that that could be done only consciously. It must be. I used to have a professor who would say, everything we really need to do, we do unconsciously. Walking, sleeping, eating. We're not smart enough to figure these things out on our own, but some part of our brain is, and it just, so that's really what motivated me to kind of try to bring the power of the unconscious mind to this healing space.
You did some special MRI studies.
Oh, sure,
this
yeah.
is a little bit out of my understanding, so I'm going to let him talk to us about these MRI
How
studies.
do we do this magical stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, people have been talking about tapping the unconscious since, you know, psychology started. Freud and everybody has their own way of tapping into the unconscious. I would like to believe that mine is a little bit more rooted in science. And so the basic methodology is as follows. We bring people in for a study and bring them to actually the Zuckerman, right, is the Brain Institute, which is over on like 125th and something, Broadway, maybe. And bring them into the fMRI scanner. An fMRI scanner is basically a big giant magnet which is able to watch blood flow in the brain. And what we can do is create a signal in the brain. What is the blood flow? What does the pattern of blood flowing in the brain look like when a person is thinking about their deceased loved one? Right? And so that is not unconscious, right? We bring in a person who's grieving, ask them to think about their deceased loved one with different ways and tasks, and we can see a pattern. This is what the brain looks like when you're thinking about your deceased loved one. And we can test how well does the pattern able to pick out, are they thinking about their deceased loved one or not? So we have this pattern. Then the really interesting part is that we can use that pattern when they're not thinking about, when we know they're distracted. They're not thinking about their deceased loved one, they're thinking about someone else. We actually ask them, were you, in the last 30 seconds, were you thinking about your deceased loved one? And most of the time they say, no, I wasn't. But then we can look at the brain and see what does the brain tell us. And so for a lot of people, most of the time, what you have is a match. If a person says, I'm not thinking about my deceased loved one, the brain does not look like it's thinking about the deceased loved one. But sometimes you have a mismatch. The person says, no, I wasn't thinking about, I was thinking about what I'm going to cook for dinner tonight or something else. And yet the brain looks like they were thinking about their deceased loved one. And just like that moment in the kitchen where you're in a state of flow, you're washing the dishes or making bracelets or doing whatever you're doing, and you're maybe taking a walk in the woods, whatever it is, you're just in a state of flow, you're doing whatever you're doing, and some part of your brain is doing the work, the hard work, and it's processing, and it's trying to figure out, how do I move forward? I mean, that's what we think, that's what the hypothesis, but we're able to see this in the brain, that people who showed that pattern, when they said, I was not thinking about my deceased loved one, but the brain looked like it was, those people a year later were doing a lot better. And so that, that opens up a window for us and says there is an unconscious process that appears to be happening that is linked to healing. And now the work is to figure out, well, what exactly is that process? And that's, that'll be the rest of my career. So.
Did you explain a little bit more about the color task? Is that part of what you were explaining?
Yeah.
Or is there more to that?
I can, yeah, sure. I mean, so in terms of like how to identify that pattern of thinking about the deceased loved one, we don't just say, think about your mom or your brother or whoever it was. What we do is we present words that they've given us that remind them of their loved one, and we present the words in different colors. And this is what's called the classic Stroop test. I'll see how many scientists there are in the audience. Say Stroop if anybody. Okay, I got one back there. Okay, 2, 3. Okay, fine. So now real scientists will fight back and say this is not a Stroop task, but there's a classic Stroop test where you see colors presented in different words, and what you're words presented in different colors, and what you're supposed to do is tell me the color of the word. So essentially, ignore the content of the word. So that's really hard when you do a real Stroop test, which is like the word blue written in red. It's like you just stare at it. You're like, I feel my IQ dripping out of my skull as I try to do that. But what we do is it's not blue written in red, but it might be a reminder of your loved one written in red, and then you have to tell me red. And so to the extent that the word is kind of pulling away, distracting you, you're going to take longer to tell me red. And so the neural pattern was trained to predict how quickly people could tell me the color, which it becomes a measure of their ability to control their attention towards their deceased loved one. And so what we saw then during what's called the mind-wandering task, where they were distracted, is that we could see the attention moving towards the deceased loved one, even though, again, they're not thinking about it. So I don't think that these people were experiencing a conscious thought of their deceased loved one. I think their attention was just moving in that direction. And we know that attention is constantly operating at an unconscious level. Like if somebody... You're listening to me now, hopefully, but if somebody behind you whispered your name, you would hear it. But if they whispered anything else, you wouldn't, because your attention is constantly operating at the unconscious level. And so what we're picking up is this kind of unconscious attentional operation that kind of picked up, okay, I'm chilling right now, I'm just doing this kind of distracting, boring task, which was... it was like 10 minutes long where they just hit a button every time they saw a number, but it's very rhythmic and you're just kind of in a state of flow while you're doing it. And so their attention said, now's a good time to kind of do some of that work and to bring attention to the deceased. And again, they weren't experiencing that consciously, and that's what we saw was helpful in 2 studies. So it seems to be a strong thing.
I think we're at the point where we're going to play a couple more examples of songs before we get into some group discussion about what some other people might have, if you feel comfortable, no pressure, to talk about some things that maybe you have had in like lightning moments in your unconscious mind. But before we jump into that, we're going to bring the band up, and I'll explain the songs while we do the transition. This whole part of the evening is called the kitchen session, and this song is called the kitchen song. And it was written when I was making bracelets, because my mother made bracelets, and she had all these beads, and all the stretchy got stretched out. And I ended up with all these beads that were hers, and so I finally decided, I think I'm just going to try to use these and make something out of them, make new bracelets. And so Luca had his guitar. Also, Luca is also my husband. So we're in the kitchen, and he was...
That's why we were in the kitchen.
That's why we were in the kitchen. It's not weird. And... Oh, yeah, whatever. Anyway, I was making bracelets, and he was strumming the guitar, and he was playing this nice rhythm, and I really liked it. So I put my phone on record, just happenstance, and this fully came from the unconscious mind because I was focusing on the bracelets. And with the lyrics and everything, this is how it happened. And we learned it from the recording later. This is called the kitchen song.
wondering if I'll see my friends, wondering if the story ends. Will I find the same face, the same trace of you? I'm wandering through the sands of time, I'm passing through the leaves of the twine, seeing you again, light my way, lighting up the train of sight, and getting through the cracks in time to see. I'll disassemble all your old work, and I'll make it into something new. I'll travel on the borders of the earth to find what used to be. Take all the remnants and put them on a string, make them into something new. I'll take up all the feelings and put them inside and wrap them in the thoughts of you. Thoughts of you. Found a key. It leads to the old me. Oh, take me on a train, I'm going home. Take me on a train, I'm going home too. Nothing's the same. Nothing's the same. Nothing's the same. Nothing's the same.
I'm not singing this one. You can if you want. You don't want that, but.
So I was not thinking about it at all. Like, at all. I was making the bracelets, and he was just playing, and we were just listening to each other, and that is what spontaneously happened. Now, this next song was written in a similar way, but different, because I wrote it on while I was playing the piano. But it came to me when I was learning another song. I had just learned another song from an album that my mother and I used to listen to when I was a kid, called Tony Bennett, The Playground. And he sang this song with Elmo called Little Things, which is also a tragically beautiful song by Joe Raposo, originally sung in a 1974 episode of Sesame Street. And I had forgotten about this song, and when I was listening to the album again, I was like, oh my God, what a song. No wonder my mom loved this album, you know? And right after I learned that, I wrote this. And this is, and I hope you can speak to this a little bit, because when I wrote this song, it was already 3 years since my mother had passed. So it seems like songs are just coming to me about her no matter what. So this one is called Again, Again. When I'm alone, I'm missing you the most. Emotions fill my breast again, again. It's been 3 years since I have held your hand. I thought by now I might just understand the loss, the pain, the grief. The wind blows cold this season.
although I know you're here. I can't help but missing you this time of year. I sit in silent wonder. It surely can't be so, oh no, that all those years of love and bliss so quickly had to go. The laughs and smiles and kisses, the songs we'd always sing, now pulse through my memories. Warmth and joy they bring. All the moments I remember, I'll carry through the year. But when it dawns November, December, I'll never forget the time I spent with you. Warmth and joy they bring, and all the moments I remember, I'll carry through the year. But when it dawns November, the time I spent with you. When I'm alone, I'm missing you the most. Emotions fill my breast again, again.
Thank you. So we're going to bring Noam back up, and I'm going to also pose a question to the audience as well. How we've mentioned how water and washing dishes or taking a shower can be a gateway to the unconscious. And when you're performing a mundane task, where does your mind go? Have you ever found a gift or an idea waiting for you at the kitchen sink? So again, no pressure, but does anybody want to elaborate on something that you might have had happen to you? No? Not yet? Okay. Or I guess we can take any comments about the songs you've heard so far, or any questions or elaborations on any of the topics yet. Oh, great.
In your list, when you were listing washing dishes, taking a shower, it was very water related. Do you think that has any connection to how you write songs?
Well, yes. Okay. Well, yes, and I think Noam is going to elaborate a little bit more on the water theme. And I mean, I have my own theories as well, but, you know, they're not based on science. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of research about what we call achieving a state of flow. And it's not just a metaphor with water, but a state of flow is really a state where a person is kind of engaged, usually in a physical task. And the task, whatever it is you're doing, something simple like washing dishes or taking a shower, taking a walk, it's sensory, it engages your body, it engages your mind, it engages your attention. And something about that seems to allow the unconscious mind to flow, right? And that's what. So there's a great. There was a mathematician in the beginning of I think the 20th century. I'm not going to say his name right because he was French, Henri Poincaré or something like that, and he wrote a lot about his own mental process of kind of trying to do whatever it is mathematicians do. And he talks about how he spent like 3 days trying to solve a certain problem, and he just couldn't do it. And then he goes and he walks along the cliffs of some beautiful place, and the answer hits him. And that's a state of flow, right? It's the way, like, we live in a physical world, we have physical bodies, and when we engage our physical body in the physical world, the entirety of our mind is able to open up. And I think water is just, if you ever stand and look at an ocean or you run your hands underwater, you feel completely engaged, completely captured by it. And that has this ability to open up our brain, the fullness of our brain, our unconscious mind, and open up to creativity.
Anyone else? No? Follow-up question on my end.
I'm a surfer myself, and I've been doing more and more cold surfing. And I've been trying to write songs about the subject, and it's very hard to have the focused mind and bring a piece of paper out there to get the notes. So,
I can see some problems.
but it's mostly like I only have my mind on the water, catching the wave, and surviving. Do you have any suggestions of like freeing my mind from the immediate dangers of nature and being able to have that creative process?
So you're sitting next to my wife, who can tell you that I face a lot of nature's dangers myself. So I do a lot of like ice hiking and running in the Adirondacks and skiing and all that kind of stuff. And I would say actually exactly what you're doing. Right? I wouldn't try to think about it in the moment. The whole point, the danger and the physical cold surfing, I assume, is surfing in cold water.
Yes.
So that's awesome. But the danger and the physical intensity of it is what is opening up your state of flow. So I would say just do that 100%. And then when you're driving back or whatever, just be open to whatever kind of comes. That's, in my thinking, like that's when it would hit, you know, not in the moment. In the moment, stay alive. But because it's dangerous, it captures your whole mind. That's the whole thing. So stick with that.
It kind of feels like there's like a transactional kind of relationship between it, because it's like if you're fully obsessed on something and you put all of your energy to just trying to like work it out, it's like you're not really going to get anywhere. You might get somewhere, but not really. And sometimes it's like, oh, well, what does like riding your bike have to do with like overcoming this challenge? What does like walking have to do with paying your bills or something? And it's just like when you take any motion towards something, anything at all, it just like it's like you're using your body the way it was intended to be used. And it feels like that opens something up, like creatively. When you start moving towards something, then the rest of your body kind of gets the hint. It's like, all right, let's start moving. But if you're like stagnant, like what, object in motion stays in motion, object at rest stays at rest. So like if you're stagnant, your brain's not going to start making any connections. And it's like you kind of get those aha moments when you just distract yourself and you're like, okay, what can I do that like still progresses me forward? And then it's like, all right, well, now we're moving. Now is the time when we can come back to this. Because if you just like helicopter parents, like when somebody's like looking over your shoulder, the subconscious brain works the best when you're not trying to control it. That's why you get epiphanies when you wake up.
The only thing we can do to stop the subconscious mind is to try and think about it consciously, and that's when we stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Did you have a question?
Hi, thank you. Speaking of water, one thing I like to do is cliff jumping. And
we should share spots.
When you go cliff jumping, there's so much anticipation before you jump. And then you just jump, and then you're in the water, and you just feel this massive sense of relief. I think one thing that happens, or has happened to me when I've experienced states of loss, is there's this anticipation of like something about to happen, this like fight or flight response of anxiety, but like after someone is lost, there's no next thing to happen. There's no event to anticipate anymore. And so there is no relief after. It just is this prolonged anxiety. So I'm curious, in your research, how do you find, I guess, people's unconscious working on letting go of that anticipation?
That's an incredible question. Do you want to speak to that, Kelly?
You first.
Okay. As you're talking, it makes me think of actually a client of mine who lost his wife to suicide, and what we've found in our work together is that his kind of cocooning of himself within his own misery is how he stays on the cliff instead of jumping. And that for him to actually engage in life and just go forward in the normal things like walk your dog and enjoy it. Be able to say to yourself, he used to like to walk his dog, and he still has to walk his dog, but he'll always say, like, it just doesn't mean anything. And I say, well, why can't it mean anything? Because then I'm moving on. So he holds his misery like a protective blanket, and the ability to step back into life and experience it and enjoy it would be his jumping, and that's what we're working on. In terms of the role that the unconscious mind might play in that, or going back to the research, one of the other findings that I have that I'm really interested in is that engaging with the painful emotions seems to be helpful. And so when a person is able to kind of feel even the worst emotions you can imagine, things like guilt in the context of suicide, it's a very powerful, very painful emotion, but to be able to feel it and not try to answer it or solve it or make it go away, but just compassionately and gently hold that feeling and say, like, yes, it's okay. You can feel guilty. That's okay. I can have that feeling. That's okay. It removes that blockage and allows people to kind of like step forward.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that in our meetings, about before today, about the unconscious mind, and that feeling of guilt being a positive thing. And then I said, what if we renamed guilt? You know, what if we gave it a different name that doesn't have the negative association, you know, to guilt? Because I certainly had things that I felt guilty about in relation to my mother. And I was thinking, oh, what if I said this wrong, or what if I did this? You know, but the reality is there's nothing I could have done differently or better or worse or anything. You know, everything just happened as it did, you know. And to allow, like, myself to feel the feelings, I think, you know, it is helpful, because I do say, like, I'm allowed to be sad, and if I need to cry, like, I'll just do it, you know. And I had another talk, like, a week and a half ago in Toronto about this exact topic, and a man stood up to me and he said, "Thank you so much for giving me permission to cry." And I thought that was really, really beautiful and powerful, and I just wanted to share that with you now as well, because I think that permission, and like you're talking about, just allow yourself to say, it's okay to feel the feeling, and then afterwards, he mentioned this as well. He said, after I cry, I feel better. Not saying I'm gonna cry all the time, but like, and for me personally, it's like the duality of the emotion, like the fact that now spring is here, and we had the long winter. You know, it's just part of life. Like, death is part of life, no matter how it happens, you know, and no matter how much we might want to avoid it.
And I really like taking that back to the cliff jumping metaphor, just like standing on that cliff and thinking, like, how am I going to do this? This is so scary. Like, you might ask, like, why do I keep doing this? But, you know, this is so scary. How am I going to take that step? And then being able to say, like, it's okay. It's scary. Like, I can just do it and be scared. I can do that. And I think with grief, like, how am I gonna get through this presentation when I feel so bad, or how am I gonna go to this family dinner when I'm so sad about her not being there? To be, like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'll do it exactly like that. I'll just take that step forward, and the feelings come what may.
Yeah, and like Maya said too, just doing the act of doing anything, you know, like even just finally taking the bracelets and saying, these are here. I might as well use something. And, you know, honestly, it was 2021 in November when my mom took her own life. And I almost never say it out loud. I was telling them, I don't even use the word suicide, because it's like, it's too close to me to, like, even say the word. Like, it's hard for me to even say that out loud. But, you know, and I haven't even listened to her voicemails. Like, I still have voicemails from her, and they're still on my phone, and I just keep them there because I'm still not even ready. And it's been what, 4 years now, and a half, and like three years and a half since I wrote that song that I just played, right? And still songs are coming about her. Like, he'll be playing guitar, and I'll sing something, and it's always something about getting back to her. But just the fact that I'm doing it, the fact that I have the bracelets and I started making them, and then I feel her more with me, and I wanted to, you know, at the end I was going to do it, but I'll say it now anyway. And it's to wrap it all into trying to realize that the people they're still here with us. Their spirits are still here with us, and I know that's not a scientific thing. But maybe you can elaborate. It is? Oh, please tell us about that.
Well, I'm not allowed to use the word spirit. I'll, be fired. But not so much the spirit, but what we would call in science the mental representation, right? Like that we have within us a kind of image or a story of every person who really matters to us. What's called a mental representation. And when someone dies, that representation continues. Mm-hmm. And when the loss is traumatic, it can be harder to access that representation. And so much of the work of grief is finding the way to write the story so that you can access your representation of the person that you love and also acknowledge what happened. And to hold both of those together in the same hand is not always so easy. But I think that's a big part of what the unconscious mind does. Consciously, that's a very hard thing to do, but unconsciously, the unconscious mind is limitless, and it can combine these things that might make not it's hard to combine, like, the person who I loved, how did they do that to themselves? And to be able to bring that together and say, well, somehow they did, allows you access back to your memory and your connection with your mom.
And I think ultimately too, I try to remember in a positive way. You know, we were best friends. Like the first song we played, you know, we talked all the time, and I still miss talking about nothing. And still, I'll be like, oh, I should call Mom and let her know we're okay, or like that we're gonna go do this or that. And every time, it's almost like it just happened again. You know, it's like just every time, it's like still just like it just happened. You know, and it's. But I try to remember it when those signs of her come. And I've had a bunch of them, and then usually people after conversations like this or after hearing the music from the album, they come up to me and they say, oh, my grandma comes to me as the North Star or as a breeze, or, you know, all these different things. And I try to reframe that in my mind and say, and rewrite the loss. And I try to say, that's a positive thing. Like, she wouldn't want me to feel negative. She would want me to be happy, and she would want me to remember her in a positive light, and not only remember how she ended, but how she was when she was with me, the whole, yeah, how she lived. And isn't that what we all want?
I have a question for you. But is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a psychologist, so it's all right.
Okay.
I picked up that the kitchen song presented a journey, and then again was kind of like this raw, almost like just sitting with the most painful emotions. And I was wondering if you could just like talk about holding both of those together in the same space, like the journey, which feels very like optimistic and hopeful, and I'm on this train and I'm going back to her, and then just at the same time also being able to sit with the darkest and most painful emotions.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of like back to like the celebrating duality. You know, just realizing that there is one thing and there's the other thing, and then that comes a lot back to like spirituality and your beliefs, you know. And but for me, you know, I try to celebrate that. So like even if it's cold, I'm like, I'm just gonna bundle up extra and like put on my extra coat. And even though it's harder to walk the dog at that time, and she has to get dressed too, you know, and it's a whole deal. But then I keep in the back of my mind, one day spring will come again. You know, and I think that's kind of where, you know, always trying to see the glass half full. Always just trying to say like, okay, we will be together again. And actually, the last song that we'll play, not just yet, but right before we leave, we have one last song, and it's called At Eternity's Sunrise. And that's where I hope to meet her, because she loved nature and the sunrise and the sunset. And so that's kind of, and that song also came when I was doing dishes. So, but yeah, I mean, just, can you speak a little bit more? Because I thought it was really, really interesting, the unconscious versus the limited mind. You said when you're focused on your mind, you can only hold, what did you say, 5 to 7 items or something like this?
Right. So what we know from kind of basic memory research is that if I, you know, give you a series of things to remember, most people can hold 5 to 7 items at a time in their working memory. So if I give you a list of digits to remember, or words, you know, 5 to 7 things, and you can kind of hack that by grouping the words or the numbers together, but it's really limited. We don't know the limits of unconscious memory, right? We have no idea how much RAM is in there, or gigabytes, I don't know the right term, but like how much storage is, as far as we know, it's limitless. And that's an incredible thing, but it's unconscious, right? Consciously, you can only hold this very limited number, and unconsciously, we seem to have a limitless. Who could say what the number of what humans can remember is? It's beyond what we know.
And so you're hopefully doing research to figure out how we can unlock this. Is that the deal?
So it's taking it beyond memory. Actually, touching on something you said, there was a really interesting study where. They took two groups of people. They took a group of people, and they gave them a very difficult kind of multifaceted problem. I think it was like which car to buy, right? And you had like 12 factors across 4 different dimensions that you had to consider. So now we all have chat, right? So you'd plug it in and you get the second answer in a second. But to try and do that yourself is a very complicated, multifaceted question. And then they split the people into 2 groups. One group had an hour to sit and work on it, and the other group was distracted for an hour. And then at the end of the hour, they were brought back and everyone had to give their answer. And for the most part, the people who were distracted for an hour did better. And the idea is that the conscious mind was really limited. And so you're trying to think, okay, I've got 12 different things, 4 different categories. Like 1, 2, 3. So if you can write, it helps, but I don't think they let them write. So you're trying to think, then you keep forgetting what were the 12 things again because you can't really hold them. But if you're distracted, then the unconscious mind holds it all, compares every different model, and just produces an answer. A similar study was done where people were given a problem and then allowed to work on it, or they went to sleep. And then the next morning, when they were woken up, they were given the answer. Then the people, or they gave a better answer if they were sleeping. And then even there, the people who were sleeping, some of them went to sleep and they just slept, and the other people went to sleep, but a scent was infused into the room, and that scent had been infused into the room when they were studying the problem. So the scent was used to kind of kick the unconscious mind into action, but it's obviously unconscious because the person's asleep, and those people did the best. And so to take that all to grieving is, to think like we have this incredible, almost like a processor inside of us, and we can do the conscious work. You can think about a problem, and it's kind of like a computer, like you're submitting this problem to the unconscious mind, right? You think about it, you work on it, but you're only going to get so far, and then you take a break. And when you take the break, the unconscious mind picks up, and it starts doing its work. And that's how you kind of harness this limitless power. And the work I'm doing is trying to figure out, A, can we prove exactly how that's happening, and can we stimulate that? Can we make it happen to help people heal?
The studies that you mentioned, are those like the studies that were linked to, I guess, discovering like spaced repetition systems and things that people use for memorization, or was that like before and then there were studies conducted?
I think they were problem-solving studies, so I'd have to look up the references, and I can get them to you. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on when Kelly said she doesn't want to use the word suicide. And I've had, unfortunately, also friends who committed suicide. My mother tongue is German, and we have 2 words for suicide. One is Selbstmord, which means the murder of the self, and the other one is Freitod, free death. And I'm using the word Freitod when I think of my friends who have committed suicide. It's a freely chosen death, and it helps me to be at peace with it, that this is what they wanted. So I just...
Yeah, and actually my mother's side is German, so that's really heavy. Are there any other quick questions or remarks?
Who is Marissa Wilson?
Oh, Marissa Wilson, that's an excellent question. She is a designer, and she designed the outfits for the band, as well as my outfit, including this beautiful jacket. And it's all based on the music from my album, Corner of My Dreams. She listened to the album, and she came up with a bunch of different designs and ideas. And she wanted me to kind of look sort of like a spiritual guide. I was like, I don't know about all that. But she based it off The Little Prince. And so we very proudly wear our outfits and, hope that, my mother lives through the album and through the presentation. Good question. Marissa Wilson, NewYork.com. Any other questions before we wrap up? We've got one more song.
Thank you. I have to choose. Okay. I think more relevant, since we're talking about loss, was when you were talking about like the mental representation. I was just thinking about like the Mexican folktales and like Coco, because like if you can't say spirit, it's like you remember the person and you kind of embody them. So it's not like you're possessed, but you kind of just like live through their ideas. If you like if you're an idealist, then what else are you? But like, especially like when losing a parent, it's like, wow, they live on through you like materially because you have their genes in you, and then also their ideas because they raised you. So it's like even when in your unconscious mind, even subconsciously, you're just living through them no matter what, because you're embodying the person that they created, and that's like part of them just living on. So as long as you continue to live as they would have wanted, you're kind of living through them. So then you're just doing something random and you're like, wow, that's how my mom taught me how to wash the dishes. I wouldn't know how to move my hand in this way if she hadn't like given me, if she hadn't taught me when I was a kid, or if she hadn't given me these hands to like work with. And it's just like, I don't know, you keep like everything that you say about loss, like remembering the person, it just reminds me that like, whether you want to or not, it comes back. And that's how like you choose. I don't know, that wasn't a very like put together idea. I was kind of just stringing it, but yeah.
That's the unconscious flow. She was in the flow state. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Schneck, for doing this. And yeah, thanks to Kent. And to the Jazz Museum for hosting us. They have really amazing events here all the time, so definitely get on their newsletter and stay in touch. Speaking of newsletters, mine is back there as well, and some of my cards, so stay in touch with me. And I'm going to bring up the band, and we're going to play for you at Eternity's Sunrise. Thank you.
Grateful for the time. Just share what's on your mind. Appreciate your space. Each moment filled with joy and grace. She lives in you. She lives in me. She's now set free from agony. It's now your time to fly away and lead us to a brighter day. Each morning summer's dew will make me think of you. I'll see you in the sky, and I'll try to never question why. And I hope you find eternity's sunrise, and I hope you see what you mean to me. And I pray each day that somehow, some way, that I will meet you at eternity's sunrise. She lives in you, or she lives in me. She's now set free from agony. It's now your time to fly away and lead us to a brighter eternity's sunrise, and I hope you see what you mean to me.
That's Elijah J. Thomas on the flutes. That's Evan Hyde on the drums. Luca Soul Rosenfeld on the upright bass and the guitar. And Dr. Noam, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. I hope you can unlock your mind and rewrite your loss.